Alrighty, so with the release of Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, we now have 5 films in Phase 4 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So today I, the film watcher, shall be ranking all 5 of those films from my least favorite to my favorite. Now, if you want to go into Multiverse of Madness blind, I'd probably just skip over the part where I talk about that. Or you could just leave this video and then watch the movie and then watch this video after. I'm not going to be discussing specifics about the plot, but if you want to go in fully blind and not know any sort of anything that happens, yeah, just avoid this for right now. That said, let's get started. In last place is Eternals. Okay, so I think this movie looks really, really, really good. Like the cinematography and the visual effects and all the use of the powers and stuff, the action sequences, they were all very cool. Like it was a very neat looking movie. And I really liked a lot of the ideas and the concepts of where these characters could go and the idea of a lot of their arcs. But, unfortunately, this movie, despite being 2 hours and 40 minutes long, still feels like it needed more time. I'm not saying the movie should have been 4 hours long. I'm saying this should have been a TV show. It would have been so much better because it's like if they'd done the Avengers, or heck, if they'd done Infinity War and had to introduce every character like that was in the movie immediately. I don't know why they had this many Eternals. I don't know what they were like. Some of them have extremely little screen time. Like Selma Hayek isn't even alive in the movie's main timeline that it takes place primarily in. Barry Coogan, the new Joker, he doesn't show up until like halfway through. The Fastos dude, he doesn't show up until like 3/4 of the way through, and then there's the climax. The Fast girl, she doesn't show up until 3/4 of the way through either. I don't get it. So it's like every character felt very, very underdeveloped. Like they could have done so much more with all of them, but they didn't because they only had this one movie. Actually, this would have been better if it was 2 movies. Like the first one would have introduced all the Eternals, and then the actual plot of this movie could have been the second one. I don't know. It's strange because there's a lot of interesting ideas in there. Like the character of Icarus, he's interesting. And they could do a lot with him. The same with Fastos and Thena and her whole thing with Gilgamesh and even Sprite. I didn't really like Sprite in this movie, but there's potential there. Or Salma Hayek's character, Ajak. Not really. Somehow, the least interesting character, who had very little personality, was the main character of the movie, Cersei. She was just nothing. Blank slate. I don't remember anything about her except her name. I don't even remember what her powers were. On top of that, like the whole villain plotline is so bad. Like you have the deviants who are just evil monsters, and then they manifest into a talking deviant that can stand up and I don't know what they were going for with that, but it doesn't work at all. It doesn't make any sense. So it's a movie that was just so lackluster and disappointing when it should have been like an epic TV show. It was just a rushed movie. Number 4 is Black Widow. Now, let's just go into the issues first. Taskmaster was lame. Like I thought I don't know anything about the character in the comics, but I thought she worked very well as a hench person. But like there were some cool action scenes with her and Black Widow, but then with the inevitable, not inevitable, the eventual reveal of her being Dreykov's daughter, that was so lame. Like I thought they they propped Taskmaster up to be like the main villain of this movie, but they never really like it. Like they didn't market the actual main villain of the movie, who, let's be clear here, is one of the dumbest characters in recent comic book movie history. He was so bad. He was such a, like, for being such a conniving and despicable man, he was a complete idiot. He kept the entire key to breaking into his secret operation on a ring that he kept on his person, on his hand, that was very easy to remove. And, like, the only thing that kept Widow from attacking him was, like, all she had to do was, like, break her nose, and he knows that she could do that at any time. What was he thinking here? On top of that, I feel like the movie was kind of unsatisfying in terms of Black Widow backstory. I mean, we did get the thing with her in Budapest, but like I was expecting so much more out of it. Now, while the movie does have its fair share of problems, it's still a good time. Like the whole family dynamic, that was just fun. The two standouts of the movie were David Harbour as the Red Guardian. He was just such an amusing character, man. And then Yelena, who just stole every scene she was in. She was easily my favorite character in this movie, and the mom too. Happy Mother's Day, by the way. The mom was pretty cool in this movie. And the action was pretty neat as well, even if the third act did get a little bit goofy with everything falling out of the sky and jumping places. It was kind of weird, but I don't know. It was a good movie, but it just had some kind of dumb problems that could have been avoided. Number 3, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. This is a movie that I think I enjoyed more the first time I watched it, because I did not watch Black Widow in theaters, so this was the first time I'd gone and seen an MCU film in theaters since Far From Home had come out, which at that point it was over 2 years ago. I don't like that thought, but anyway. Yeah, I enjoyed Shang-Chi quite a bit when I first saw it. I went back and rewatched it, and it was good. I don't feel that it was that memorable, which is a shame, because I want to remember this movie more, but it's just, I don't know, there's just something about it that makes me lose a bit of interest. I think I know. Well, maybe part of the reason they kind of overload the movie with references to MCU events and characters. Like, Wong is there twice. I mean, he's cool, but like, and then Abomination is there. Never explained that. He's not in Multiverse of Madness. I'll say he's not, but why is he with Wong? Or like Carol Danvers and Bruce Banner in the end credits. That was kind of cool, but like, and then the whole thing with Trevor. Okay, so I still think that Trevor is a really, really bad villain. This movie made him a better character, but I still don't think he was that funny. It was cool to see him, and I didn't expect it, but it was just like, okay, so you fixed Iron Man 3. Kind of. I don't know. And then the third act did get pretty over the top with the dragon and the giant monster soul sucker beast thing. So that was, and it was cool, but I mean, it was kind of just spectacle for the sake of spectacle, and there was no real logic or reason to it. That said, the movie's main story about Shang-Chi and his family was very interesting. Shang-Chi himself was a fun new character. He was enjoyable. And his father he was such a compelling villain with an interesting and relatable motivation, but I mean, he was just duped by big soul-sucking monster thing. Not to mention, I think the movie had quite a bit of solid humor to it. Like, I really liked the relationship between Shang-Chi and Aquafina's character, Katie. She was just, they were just a fun pairing. And I really liked the scene where they sing Hotel California with Wong at the end. That was great. So it, and the action sequence is phenomenal. The choreography here is just excellent. So it was a good movie. I wouldn't say it's a great movie, but I do like it. Number two is Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I really got to go back and rewatch this one because, like, I think it works so well as a follow up to Doctor Strange and WandaVision. It does a lot of great character development for Doctor Strange and Wanda. Not Vision, he's not in the movie, but yeah. And like Sam Raimi does an excellent job of directing the movie and creating some just weird, wacky sequences. All the cool monsters and variants of characters that we see are just really cool, and all the action was really neat. We got some, and again, the character arcs for both Strange and Wanda were compelling, and I was following them, and it was interesting. And you also get America Chavez thrown in there, and I was like, when I first heard she was going to be in the movie, I was like, who's this? What's she doing here? But she actually is important to the plot, and she had a fun dynamic with Strange, and it was cool to see the journey she went on throughout the film. Now, the movie does have a couple of story flaws. It feels like it should have been much longer, because the actual climax of the movie doesn't feel like a climax. And right at the end, I was thinking, okay, I'm waiting for something else bad to go wrong and a big climax to happen and cool stuff. And then the movie ended. And I was like, wait, huh? What? So there was that, and the excuse that they give for the initial setup of the movie is a little bit flaky, kind of, sort of, I don't know, a little bit. So the climax is a bit weird, and okay, so I don't want to go into spoilers here, but the reason that I walked out of this movie feeling let down and disappointed isn't because I thought it was bad. I thought it was good. In fact, I thought it was very good. It was very enjoyable. But when you title a movie In the Multiverse of Madness, you'd think that there would be more, I don't know, multiversal madness that happens. And like, yes, there's monsters and creatures and like the zombie stuff, and that's all fun and good. But I wanted more of like cameos and stuff. Like, I feel like the movie would have worked better if they didn't tease any of the, like, if they hadn't put Professor X in the trailer or Captain Carter in the more recent ones. I think if they hadn't done that and just left those parts of the movie a complete surprise, it would have worked much better. Because when you have that in the trailers, in the early like the Patrick Stewart was in a trailer that came out in February during the Super Bowl. So like you built it up in your head to expect a lot more, and the movie doesn't deliver as much of that as one would think. So that's the reason I want to rewatch this movie. I want to go in with better expectations and not expect as much as I was expecting when I first went into it. So it was a really good movie, and there was some awesome stuff in it, but I was disappointed of the lack of what the title offered. Number one, without question, like a mile, that's not a mile, a big gap between this and the other four entries on this list. It's good. It's No Way Home. It's Spider-Man No Way Home. This is how you, Multiverse of Madness, take notes. This is how you do multiverse stuff right. Because they didn't tease, spoilers, in case you haven't seen the movie, in which case, watch the movie. But, because they didn't tease Toby and Andrew or Matt Murdock in the trailers, those were just okay. I mean, sure they were gonna be in I can't imagine. I couldn't have imagined if they weren't gonna be in the movie, but like it was just a huge surprise because we didn't know how they were gonna be in the movie. Like if they'd put a shot of if they put any shot, any tease of them in the trailers, it would have been less satisfying when they actually showed up. And it was awesome when they did show up because they let it be a surprise. Kind of. I mean, yeah, there was the leaked footage and crap, but you know what? Andrew Garfield honestly has not aged that much in the past, like, since this movie came out. It would have been 7 years since this and Amazing Spider-Man 2. So I was like, oh, come on, that's just used footage from Amazing Spider-Man 2. It wasn't. It was actually in the movie. But this movie it did such a great job of pulling all the multiverse stuff together while still telling a compelling and interesting story that focused on, like, Spider-Man and specifically Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Like, the lessons of Spider-Man all crammed in this one movie. Plus, it found a way to do, like, the origin story of Spider-Man in a much different way where he has much more experience prior to the "with great power comes great responsibility" line and event that happens. But like when you go into Homecoming, it's like, oh, the origin story already happened. Well, I already had Uncle Ben and great power comes great responsibility. But guess with this movie, no, not really. It happened now, and now we're gonna get classic Spider-Man, as we saw a little bit of at the end of this movie, and that was cool. Man, so the way they incorporated all of the villains, I guess the one area the movie's lacking is they didn't really do anything with Sandman or the Lizard. In fact, neither of those two actors ever appeared on set. They did the voice stuff and they used archive footage from their respective films. And it was like not even unused footage, just footage from the movies. Like Sandman going like or whatever that was, looking at his hand and being like kind of sad or something. Like that's from Spider-Man 3. I didn't recognize it initially, but you know what? It was there. I don't know. So if they'd done a little bit more with Lizard and Sam, like honestly, the movie would have been just a smidge bit better if Lizard had just gone into the condo with them, like instead of just sitting in a truck. What's up with that? I don't know. But the way they use Electro and make him much better, Doc Ock, Green Goblin becoming like one of the top MCU villains, just man, that was all done so unbelievably well. And you know, just one detail that I appreciate as a mega fan of J. Jonah Jameson, I really like that they explain all of the other people from the different universes coming into the universe, not the into the MCU, but J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson is so good and so perfect that he literally transcends the multiverse. He is the same in every he's the same person in every universe. Because he exists in all realities exactly the same. There are no variants. He's the greatest man that has ever been invented for a fictional thing ever. Yeah. I laugh every time he shows up in this movie. Even like after Aunt May dies, I feel so bad every time I watch this. And he's like, everything Spider-Man touches comes to ruin. And I feel bad about that. But you know what? It's an absolute masterpiece. And I will stand by that. It is easily the best of this phase so far. So yeah, that is my Phase 4 ranking. Thank you for watching. Share your ranking in the comments below. Comment that. How has that become a running gag? Anyway, and keep calm and watch on.